Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am not joined by my co-host because we wanted to make sure that it's been a long time since we got to interview our very special guest, friend, brother of the podcast, Mr. Logan Paulson, currently former tight end of the Washington Redskins, but also current play-by-play analyst on the radio network with Bram Weinstein. Logan, I can't thank you enough, man, for taking some time out for us. It's been so long, man.
It's been way too long. Thanks for helping me out with the schedule, and yeah, looking forward to chatting a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I don't have my usual setup. I'm out and about for work and everything. So look, I have all of it right now at this point. So don't worry about it at all. But that being said, I want to get into where the team is at this moment. Because before we get into Jayden and the questions that I do have regarding him, but much more so with the team aspect, going into that Eagles game, did you kind of see the wear and tear of the season? Was that weighing heavily, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think at this point of the year, every team's banged up, but I do
Right.
think that the Washington Commanders were kind of going through a little bit of a tough spot. I mean, just look at the offensive line. I mean, everybody's got something. Wiley's got the shoulder, Allegretti's got a bunch of different stuff, Biotich's got a bunch of different stuff. Coleman's got the shoulder also. Lucas has the ankle, and those guys. I've got a ton of respect for that group specifically because they just put it all on the line. They go to war every single week. But as a guy who's played through injuries before. Like I know how psychologically and physically demanding that can be. I
Yeah.
think that's part of it. I think coming off that Pittsburgh game, that was a really physical matchup. Watching that game from the sideline and doing the broadcast with Bram in London, like being on the sideline and feeling that game, the physicality, the speed, the urgency, the energy, and then taking it down to the wire. So not only are you emotionally fatigued from kind of a tough loss, but you're physically fatigued. So I do think coming off a short week for my money, the most talented person for person team we've played this year in the Philadelphia Eagles, like that team was very, very talented. Playing that team on a short week after a physical matchup, guys are banged up. I think all those things are kind of leading into that game, and I'm not making excuses for them because I know that they expected to win the game. When you talk to guys around the building, talk to coaches, like they expected to win, and they should. But there was a lot kind of stacked against them in the deck, and I think that showed up in the Thursday night game versus Philly.
You're absolutely right. And with the Thursday game, I want to get your opinion on this. Going Monday game, or no, it was Thursday against the Eagles. Just talk about, because personally for me, I felt like it was a snowball effect where the offensive line, like you said, is they're banged up. They're dealing with things. Jalen Carter was able to really inflict his presence, his will on us. Do you think that was a snowball effect for the offense? Because obviously that wear and tear of the season, that quick turnaround, you could see it offensively where things were definitely slowed down. Do you think that was much more so of like a trenches thing? Because people are going to blame Jayden for that sort of come off, but I think that there's a lot going into that.
Well, I mean, it's a team game, so everybody's got their part in it. But I do think this team, and to their credit, has been driven by the offensive line. Like that
Yeah.
group's played really, really well. And you look at the games that they're in and that they're successful in, it's when they're running the football and they're pass protecting effectively. And in the last two games against better fronts, it's been a little bit more of a slog. It's been more physical. It's been a little bit more challenging, and I think that's shown up. So I do think that the offensive line struggled a little bit, but in other games where they've struggled, Jayden's been able to elevate, or Terry's been able to make a big play, and they just weren't able to get that elevation across the board. So I'm not going to say it's on the offensive line or it's on Jayden, it's on all 11 guys. And I think even defensively, like when you go watch the film defensively, man, they played their hearts out for like three
Yeah.
and a half quarters. And then at the end, they're not getting support from the offense. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about football. And the beautiful things about this team is like when they win games, they're playing good complementary football. They're supporting each other. And in this game, whether it was the short week, whether it's the injuries, whether it's credit to Philadelphia and how well they played, they just weren't able to kind of get everything together. And I think when you look at the film, everybody kind of had their hand in not putting the best performance forward for the team. And so, yeah, I think the offensive line, I think they'd be the first to tell you they could play better. But um, again, everybody on the team could have played better in that loss. So,
Yeah, even the defense that were playing their heart out, that fourth quarter was evident, but obviously they were tired. You could tell they've been on the
mm,
field a heck of a whole lot leading up to that point. and they really were playing lights out. But I wasn't trying to crap on the offensive line. I was a former offensive
No,
lineman. I totally get it. It just seemed like a snowball effect where everyone was
sure.
just out of rhythm, right? And I think Dan Quinn kind of alluded to this in his presser, saying like that practice time when Jayden was out with that injury, with the rib injury, that kind of derailed the timing of the kind of rhythm of the offense, and you can kind of see that up until this point. But my next question for you: what is obviously we haven't talked to you since like the summer, but what is most surprising at this point? Is it the offensive production or is it the defensive production?
I think it's just honestly, it's the whole thing. And what I
Okay.
mean by that, it's just how well everybody's being coached, how hard everyone's playing. And I think, coming into the season, I think the expectation, or Vegas at least had the expectation set at about, what was it, 6 wins, five and
I
a
think
half wins,
six and a
something like
half or
that.
something like
Yeah,
that.
whatever it was. And so to be at 7 already and have a chance at the division, and there's very winnable games left on the schedule. I think what is there, 6 games left, and obviously 3 divisional games, and the other games are teams that are good football teams, but definitely winnable games. I mean, it's better than anything you could have hoped for. So I think the surprising thing is, and I probably shouldn't have been surprised because I have a lot of faith in Dan, is just how dramatically the coaching and the culture change has impacted this roster. Just watching how hard the guys play on a down in, down out basis is just incredible. That's defense, that's offense. And again, is it perfect all the time? No. Like we just talked about some issues that they had in Philly, but they came out and went toe to toe with that group, which is again a very talented group. They went toe to toe with the Steelers. And I think that Steelers loss, or that close Steelers loss, which again, they're probably 2 plays away from winning that game, a better spot away from winning that game if you want to go that far. Um, it, like looks in a completely different light in my opinion after you watch them beat the not beat the brakes off of Baltimore, but really have a very competitive defensive led game against the Baltimore Ravens this last weekend. So I don't know. I think that all of that is just very surprising. Like I wasn't expecting to be talking about the team in this way. I thought I kind of came into the season being like, oh, if Jayden looks good and they win 8 games, like that's going to be a successful season. But here we are, and it's like, man, like they're in the teeth of it, and they're playing in such a way where you're like, they could make a playoff push. They could make this thing happen. And that's something that is extremely special and was totally beyond my expectation.
Yeah, and obviously you were on that 2012 team, and you've told us before that was a magical time. You wish you could relive that and go back to that time when you were on that team and what you were able to do. But like in seeing it from the booth at this point, I think that's a really good mesh there where you could kind of see something like this. But to this team's credit, it's not like it's just offensively, right? Like Brian Robinson coming up with career touchdowns up until this point, recorded in the season. Terry McLaurin projected to have a really good season, but defensively, like, a lot of people were crying about Montez Sweat and Chase Young leaving. Then here comes Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong, and then also Frankie Louvu just wreaking havoc defensively. Mikey Sammer still having some hands on the ball, but to your point, it's not just like it's just Jayden. It's the entire team, and the coaching obviously goes a long way to that. But that being said, going up against the Cowboys, I think one of the hardest things for Washington at this point is getting back on track because of the last two games. You don't want that to bleed over, right? You want to get back into the way things were going. You want to actually have some confidence building. So, what is one area that Washington has to really prioritize going against Dallas this weekend? It's Dallas week. It's big. But what do they have to do to get back on track?
Well, I think, you already mentioned, Dan was talking about the practice week, and I think, that's something they're going to emphasize this week. They got extra time. They got a couple days off, so everyone's going to kind of be a little bit healthier, a little bit fresher. Let's maximize practice opportunities. They haven't had that luxury because of injury with Jayden, because of the short week with Philly. So let's maximize practice time. So that's the first thing. Because again, like I think that is something that is for a young quarterback extremely important. And Dan and his presser already alluded to the importance of that and how they're going to prioritize that. So great job. Love that they're checking that box right out the gate. I think the second thing is just kind of, can you find that, I'm going to say offensive efficiency, but I think that's really tied to the run game too. They go hand in hand. And I think that obviously if you can run the football effectively against a defense that struggle to stop the run, that's awesome. But also, like, just if you think back to the Pittsburgh game, think back to the Philly game, one thing they've done in those games, which they hadn't done all season, is they took a lot of negative plays. And credit to those groups, credit to the Pittsburgh defense, credit to the Philly defense, because those guys played their faces off. But can we eliminate those negative plays and get back into that offensive efficiency or something close to what we saw earlier this year? That's Jayden making good decisions about when to scramble. That's understanding our quick game and when to call them and executing the quick game at a high level. That's understanding, again, just maintaining that positive relationship to the sticks is so, so critical. And that all goes back to B-Rob too.
Yep.
First and second down runs, when he's efficient, when he's rolling, this offense is efficient because it deleverages the offensive line, it deleverages the quarterback. So can we find ways to get that done? And hopefully this week it feels like we should be able to, right? Because we should be, the Commanders should be, excuse me, in a positive game flow, right? They're not going to be stressed super by Cooper Rush. That offense is struggling since Dak left the lineup. So if I'm Cliff, I know that I can stick with what I want to do. I can stick with running the football. I can stick with kind of being, I don't want to say conservative because that has the wrong connotation, but just being smart and deliberate about play calls in a way that I haven't been able to be the last couple of weeks, where every single play call is walking a razor's edge. Now there's a little bit more flexibility. So
Mm.
all of that to say, let's run the football. Let's be a little bit more efficient offensively. And I think this offense will get back on track. And if the offense is back on track with how the defense has been playing the last couple of weeks, I think we're going to be in a really, really good spot moving forward.
And just interpreting what you were saying, basically, Cliff can be more free minded in
Yeah.
the sense of being able to call things, right? Not much more so that nervous, not nervous, but just pressurized.
I mean, it's just like the margin for error is smaller versus better teams,
Right.
right? The coverage windows are smaller. Instead of getting 5 yards on a first down run, I get two. So now my second down call has to be excellent, right? To get into that 3rd and 2 or get that first down. And then again, I'm probably getting to some type of drop back pass. It's going to stress the O-line. So if we, again, just up that efficiency a little bit with the runs or quick game or screens, however we're going to do it, I think this is going to be a much kind of more reasonable game for the offense, and they're going to look more like what they've looked like, throughout the season.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right because early on in the season, they were keeping those third downs very short. And as of late, they've been getting into a lot of situations where if they do get into that short second down, they still get negative yards to your credit. So, like, we've got to get back into those short third downs to help the offense out so they can run the football. When they get pressured into doing those passing downs on third down, that's when things get muddied, right? But
Sure.
that being said, going against Dallas, looking ahead towards the future, Marcus Lattimore, what does he add to this defense, Logan, and what they can ultimately do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a really tremendous addition when he's healthy and when he is playing. I think he is, a top probably 10 corner in the NFL, and I think he's going to allow Joe Witt Jr. to be who he wants to be as a defensive play caller. He can be a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more aggressive with man-to-man situations. He can put him on a little bit of an island if he wants to. And I think, I've kind of gotten some heat for this, but I think Benjamin St-Juste has been fine in that role, but that's not really his ideal role in a
Right.
defense, right? You want him to be able to kind of say, you can be the two, we make sure you got safety help, you can match the three receiver side. You don't have to be on the island one-on-one by yourself. And I think Lattimore brings that. And I think the other thing he brings is some leadership and some experience. So for guys like Mike Sanders, still for guys like Benjamin St-Juste, who've never really had a true mentor in the room like that, a guy that's got this kind of top flight corner experience. And it's very fortunate that he's here because not a lot of people have that. Maybe Kendall Fuller would be another example of a guy
Yep.
who could have brought that. But having that in the room, I think, is extremely important. So I think it helps Joe Wood Jr. I think it helps the rest of the guys. Whether Sanders stays outside or St-Juste stays outside, they all get kind of funneled into roles that are more conducive to their skill sets. And I think it brings a level of experience that I think is so important when developing talent is to have someone, a player who's done it and can speak to certain things that are beneficial.
Yeah, I said it last week that it's almost like adding a Bobby Wagner to the secondary in the term of leadership style, to what he brings in physical style as well. But to wrap this up, Logan, only a couple more questions I have for you. With Jayden Daniels, I said it last week that you can't really expect him to play like he was early in the season for all 17 games. That's
Right.
asinine to think of. But a lot of people will point to the injury. I am not one of those. I just think that it's much more so of a mechanics sort of thing. Dan Quinn brought up practice. In your opinion, is there a certain reason as to why there has been a drop off in efficiency and a little bit of accuracy? Obviously, the wide receivers have a lot to do with that with catching the football.
Yeah, I mean it definitely is multifactorial. So I think when you look at Jayden Daniels and what he has done the past couple of weeks, I think you mentioned the inaccuracy. I think a lot of that, has to do with practice. He's a young player. This is a long season. You need to make sure as fastidious and deliberate and studious as he is, like in preparation for the game every week, you need the reps, right? You need the
Yep.
timing with the receivers. And you can see that I don't think his decision making actually has been that off. I think it's actually been still pretty good. It's just the ball placement, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you say, oh, his base isn't quite right when he's making this throw. He's a little off rhythm. And those are things that help when you're doing 7-on-7s, when you're doing team pass, because you're getting an opportunity to work at the correct speed in practice with the receivers and understanding where they're going to be in the timing and the spacing. So I think that practice element is huge. I also think the two defenses that he struggled because I look, okay, he hurt his rib against Carolina, right? So
Right.
they play the Bears. That was one of statistically his better games of the season. And to my money, he played. Then the next week was the Giants, which was a fantastic game by him, and maybe his best game of the year in terms of big time throws and anticipating stuff. So then you get
Agree.
into Pittsburgh, which is a top five defense, and you get into Philly, which is the best defense of the last 5 weeks and a top 10 defense over the course of the season. They do a great job of pressuring the pocket. They do a great job making tight throwing windows in the back end. You can feel that a little bit when you're watching him, right? He's not always throwing from a perfect base. He's
Right.
not always right. He's overstriding a little bit. And
Hmm.
so I think you got to give the practice time its due credit. I think you got to give the defenses their due credit from a coverage and from a rush standpoint. We haven't really seen anything like that this year. So I think all of those things kind of come together and say this is why he's potentially struggled a little bit in these last two games. And struggling is probably putting it mildly. I actually think he played okay versus Pittsburgh. Obviously, Philly's a different animal, but I think this little kind of mini bye comes at totally the right time. We get a little bit more practice time. We get a little bit of time to heal up. We can get some of those reps in practice that we haven't been able to just because of a scheduling issue.
Right.
And now we're ready to rock and roll. And then on top of that, we got two games. Then we get the bye, and we get another little spell like this where we can get back to some of that health that we're talking about, get back to some of those scheduling and practice things we're talking about, and put ourselves in a position, the Commanders in a position to make a really solid push here for the last half of the season, the
My,
last 6 games of the season.
my man, totally, wholeheartedly agree. For this game against Dallas, who will be the unsung hero?
That's a really good question. Unsung hero, I think, will probably be, I'm going to say, shoot. I'm gonna say like I'm gonna say like Luke McCaffrey, just to put his name out there because he's a guy that I think is doing a good job and has been close on some stuff but hasn't quite hit. And so I think as his opportunities get more, as the offense settles in, as the offensive efficiency is higher, they're on the field more, the drives are longer. He's the type of guy that's going to be a beneficiary of that. And him and guys like, Zach Ertz is a good example also. Like the longer the drives, the more opportunities for those guys that kind of do a little bit of the dirty work in the offense. So those are my two guys that I'm going to point out.
My man. Last thing I have the keys to beating Dallas, in your opinion. If you could provide three.
Yeah, so for me, it's doing what this team does well. It's running the football and playing good offensive football. And so running the football is probably an oversimplification, but just maintaining positive relationship to those first down markers on first and second down,
Yeah.
making sure that first down and second down play are positive and are not taking negative plays. So that's going to coincide with running the football. And then defensively, I say make Cooper Rush beat you from the pocket. They're a team that isn't super effective running the football, so let's make sure our coverage structures are locked up. We're not going to give up explosive plays to CeeDee Lamb or Tolbert. Like we're okay with you having 5 yard runs because we know you're not patient enough to do that the whole way down the field. So play conservative,
Okay.
make Cooper Rush beat you because he'll give you balls to catch defensively, get interceptions, get turnovers, and I just don't think he's capable. Even though he's a very good quarterback he's an NFL quarterback. Let me say that. I don't think he's capable of going the length of the field consistently and beating you.
It'd be good to have a package against Trey Lance as well, who we know likes to run and has a shirt on.
That's
But
right.
real quick, a very short answer. I know you got to get out of here, but some fans have complained that possibly Cliff Kingsbury, his record in the back end of seasons. Do you worry at all? Do you think it's a thing that defenses like figure Cliff out at this point in time in the season?
I think every coordinator in the NFL has to negotiate this. Like Sean
Okay.
McVay went through periods like this. Kyle goes through periods like this. LaFleur in Green Bay. Like I think this year San Francisco struggled a little bit. And I think there's nobody smarter than Kyle in terms of offensive football in the NFL.
Agreed.
Look at the Chiefs, right? They're struggling a little bit offensively. Defenses are smart. The more reps you get to see them, the more games you get to see, you're going to have to adjust. And so I do think that's another reason why I think this kind of mini Thursday night bye is so important because it lets Cliff look at what they're doing and say, how do we tweak it a little bit? How do we take what we're doing well and put a little window dressing on it? And I think this is a great opportunity for that. And knowing in my limited interactions with Cliff, like he loves ball, he loves that grind, he'll figure this out. And I think putting him in a position now like this where he's not the head coach and he can focus exclusively on calling plays, I think we're going to see a significant bounce back in terms of offensive efficiency. And I can't wait to watch these guys this Sunday.
My man, Logan, I can't thank you enough. It's been a pleasure as always, brother. Before we get out of here, just want to plug your social media handle and the show, the play-by-play.
Yeah, so definitely check out the radio on Big 100 with Fletch and Bram. We do the in-game on Big 100 there, and then obviously the Command Center stuff, like the TV show, the Game Day with Ron, the podcast, the Command Center podcast. That's all on YouTube on the Washington YouTube channel, and then obviously the Take Command podcast I do with Craig. So lots of ways to find me. Make sure you check it all out.
And make sure you tell London we're in his thoughts and prayers
Yeah, for
out
sure.
to him. Obviously, we love that guy. All right,
Yeah.
Logan, have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Peace. Welcome back, everybody, to the Burgundy Zone, to this episode of the Dallas Duel. You just heard my interview with Logan Paulson last night. Always appreciate Logan for taking some time out for us. And, it's been a long time since we've talked with him, but a lot of intriguing things. I think one of the most surprising things that Logan had talked about, to me personally, was about the Cliff Kingsbury and coordinators these days having to adjust because defense is picking up on things so quickly. I honestly was not expecting for him to say that in the slightest, but it is what it is. But that was probably one of the most surprising things because obviously in this league now, it's a week to week league, and at this point, so many teams have gotten stuff on you that they know what you want to do, and you have to mix things up. To Logan's point and credit, that was a fantastic answer that he had there. But I have another surprise for you guys, and speaking of comebacks, we thought that it'd be a good time for the big old boy himself, Mr. Michael Reed, to rejoin the show. What's up, dude?
Um, What's up, dude? Contract signed. No more holdout. We agreed to new terms, which means that in 2 months' time, I can say whatever I want without being held accountable once the boy gets sworn into office, and we're good.
It's
No
funny
more.
you could tell everybody that, but we'll keep it between us that you were in witness protection in the Diddy case. Okay, we'll just
Well,
keep that.
but all I did was supply the lube, Kyle.
Of course you did. But look, man, it's been a while since you've been on here, since you talked to everybody. Obviously, we've been in constant contact. But because we haven't gotten your reaction, let's talk about it this season to you. Because it's been a while. What has it been like?
Dude, it's been sick. I know. It's been unreal. I mean, watching Jayden Daniels in this offense, and it's funny too because it started out pretty slow. Week one against Tampa, and then week two, I remember people being like, "This is the Cliff Kingsbury offense." But then the boys get rolling a little bit. JD gets hot. Cliff Kingsbury opens things up like Kyle does on a Saturday night when he spreads his legs, and then it just kept rolling. And watching the defense progress, like a lot of people want to point to Jayden for the last 2 weeks not playing up to par, but like he still played well. Like his bad games as a Washington fan, you look at those bad games, you'll be like, yeah, he missed some throws against Pittsburgh, which is what it is coming off 4 days rest and his injury and stuff. But like, I'll take some of those bad games compared to some of the bad games that we have seen from some of these other quarterbacks over the last 25 plus years. But it is what it is. He'll
Look
get
at the
back on
past year.
track. Yeah, exactly. So it'll all be good, and everybody, no matter how you slice it, we've won 7 games already. That's a pretty goddamn good, successful first year for Dan Quinn.
And almost everybody wanted to jump off a cliff at losing to the Eagles on Thursday night after losing to the Steelers. Everyone thinking that this is it.
Right.
It was an absolute weird time. But just looking back on it now, it's crazy to see how far they've come in such a short amount of time. We talked
It's insane.
so much in the offseason about the turnover rate and.
Right.
Honestly, in my opinion, the fact that not only because it's Washington and there was a lot of different moves, because obviously Adam Peters himself deserves some credit in this
Yeah.
category, just being able to turn things around. But honestly, in my opinion, there is no debate about it. Like I think that Dan Quinn and Kevin O'Connell are probably the two guys you can point at and say that those are the guys going for Coach of the Year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as of right now, like it's kind of almost still. I mean, even coming off of back-to-back losses, it's got to be. I would imagine it's got to be Quinn, but I mean, Darnold's had his up and down stretches with O'Connell, and but it is what it is. That's what you get with Sam Darnold. You don't know what you're going to get with JD yet. I think JD is going to turn it around, and hey, I still have faith in Cliff Kingsbury. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if people are like, "This is the second half of the season." He always falls off on the second half of the season. Okay, it's fine. We still have so much talent. It's going to be okay. The boys are rolling. Terry's happy. That's all we can ask for right now. I don't
Right.
care.
Now before we get into our predictions for the game, let's answer some fan questions. And bright and early this morning, our boy Tony Franchise sent one in. Reed, what are your expectations for the rest of the season?
I think we end up winning about 11 games, which is a fantastic start to this new era. And it's just you got to be positive, and I think that we Kyle knows all about that. Kyle knows all about being positive. You see him in his little hotel room right now, getting all cute and twinked up, and I like that. I think that's a good look for you that
I
you're
don't know what
living
that
openly
means.
right now. You know what it means. Come on. But yeah, I would say so. And I mean, hey, even if they finish with 10 wins, 9, 10 wins, that's still a successful season compared to what we were saying during training camp. And
That's a
yeah,
good
I think
point.
they're gonna go on a decent run. I mean, you look at the upcoming games. I mean, Dallas and Tennessee, those should be wins. Then you got the much needed bye, which I hate when they have the bye weeks this late in the season. It's got to be so frustrating as a player. But this 10-day break is going to help, and they're going to get things back together. You know, they face two tough defenses back to back on 4 days rest. Is what it is. Two
Yeah,
playoff teams too. Two very good playoff teams.
I do expect them to get back into a rhythm. It definitely seemed like the past couple games, it almost felt like the Ravens game again in those past two ones where it's just hard to get something going offensively, and their defense is doing a very good job of containing things. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they made a really good point. No, I think it was the Colonel who told us on Sunday. He was like, I think, oh no, sorry, my bad. It was Logan who was talking, and he had a great point. And when he was saying that looking back like at that Baltimore Ravens loss, it almost makes you feel better with the Pittsburgh loss because of what Pittsburgh was able to do to Baltimore.
Yeah,
And what
Baltimore put up what 16 points against them
yeah, and
or something like that. Yeah,
what they've been doing essentially to the Ravens and everybody else, it kind of just shows you the grand scheme of things. And my expectation, Tony, I said it before the season. I don't want to get into it now, but at this point, you expect success. You expect them to come out every week fighting and doing their best to compete at the end. And that's the one thing that you can really take to the bank is that they're not going to go into the end of the season concerned, tired. I think they're going to get back into things. And just like the usual games that they've had this year, there is no quit in them. And so I expect them to fight in every game. And I don't expect this to be a pushover of a match. Obviously, the Cowboys have lost their past 5 games. They are coming in 3-7. They started out 3-2, which is just going to show you that that's kind of brutal on their end. And obviously, the injuries have been catastrophic on their part. But I expect them to go 1-0. That's my expectations for the rest of the season, Tony. I hate to, just poo-poo your question away, but honestly, I'm not looking at the expectations. Like whatever happens, happens. We saw the collapse of Alex Smith after 6-3. We saw what went on with RG3 after his rookie year. Let's just enjoy it week
Jim
by week.
Zorn was 6-2. I think
Right.
they're his first 8 games.
So let's just enjoy the season for what it is. All right. But
But
before we get move on to
but
another
real
fan.
fast, oh, you got to feel good though with Dan Quinn and Joe Witt and Torrance Armstrong and these guys as former Dallas guys. You know they're going to show up against Dallas. Like they've had whether Dallas is good or not. I mean, it's a rivalry game. Anything could happen. It's an overseas game, but you got to feel good. You know they've had this game circled on their calendars. The first time facing Dallas after leaving there, they still have relationships with all those guys. There's nothing better than going down there and beating them up. And by the way, Joe Witt, dude, what a job he's done with the defense. Like if the offense can get 3/4 of what it was during that huge win streak, and the defense continues to play like they have been, this team's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, and Mikey Sanders still last week having a fantastic game. Obviously, the DB's going to have to come to play in this
And
one.
Jeremy Chin, oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Right now, the Commanders' defense are 27th in red zone conversion percentage. They are 14th in points per game, 5th in passing yards, 30th in rushing yards, 26th on third down conversion percentage, and 13th in sacks. I think the sacks go a long way, kind of like you in the summer working Saturday nights. And so
That's right.
I think that Frankie Louvu obviously has been probably one of the unsung heroes of this team. As much as you want to say the unsung is not in the case, but I truly do feel that way. And also Dante Fowler. I mean, even
Yeah.
myself, I wasn't fully convinced of what we were going to be able to be getting out of that duo of Clelin Ferrell and Dante Fowler. But my goodness, dude, he's been on a tear. But before
Yeah.
we answer more fan questions, my question for you is Jayden Daniels today in his presser had said that the wrap that goes around his ribs is to keep him warm. It has nothing to do with an injury. What are
Hey,
your thoughts on that?
he's a Cali boy who went to Arizona State, followed by Louisiana State. He's not used to the cold weather. Let the boy be warm. If the boy wants to be warm, let him be warm. I don't think that that's necessarily true, but if Jayden Daniels tells me that, I'm going to believe it because the dude, I can say anything, I'll believe it at this point.
I would definitely play him in poker. I will say that.
You know,
But it was a fantastic response, and I believe him. That's all I'm gonna say. I believe him.
you know.
I don't think the ribs are that much of a detriment, man. It really, like we
No, I
saw.
think it probably was, but like the practicing and stuff, I think is also pretty big. He's practiced what 4 times since he got the injury
Yeah, and
against
I think
Carolina.
that's what Dan Quinn has said in his presser, and I
Yeah,
absolutely agree with him. And Logan brought up a really good point regarding this, saying that Jayden had his best statistical, probably just based off the film, game of the year against Chicago the week after he got injured with those
yeah,
ribs.
right.
And so it just seems like a convenient excuse at this point to possibly blame
Blame the
the
ribs.
offensive
Yeah.
downplaying on the ribs, right? I think it's just a multitude of things. And Logan talked about the offensive line being a huge part of that, of course. And
Did
I, I,
Logan talk about anything else? Like maybe like a certain co-host who he hasn't seen in a long time because he's been screening my calls and avoiding me.
I don't know. I guess you have to re-listen to it to see if he brought you up.
No, I'm good, dude. Anyway,
Now the next question we have, Reed, is from the Colonel. Jayden Daniels' drop off in production the past couple games have many speculating why. Some pundits saying it's because of his rib injury, others saying opposing defensive coordinators now end up film to plan against him. A little bit of both, or was the rib injury more serious than we thought?
no, I don't. I think it was just. I mean, look, rookie quarterbacks. I know that like Jaden was playing so unreal that it set such a high expectation, but like, dude, Patrick Mahomes, look at how he's played. The quarterbacks have bad games. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, everybody has bad games. He's a rookie. He will. It'll be all right. He played two fantastic defenses in back-to-back weeks on short days rest. Like it's been a long season so far. We still haven't had the bye week. He'll be all right. It's probably a combination of things, but I think that probably has more to do with it than either the ribs or defense is figuring him out. You can't figure out somebody who can run like that with the threat and who has an arm like that in a deep ball. Like it's that at that point, like that's established. That's who Jayden is. Like that's Jayden's gonna scare defenses every time he plays them because of those threats. So and just his mental, his the aptitude, I think is the word. I don't know. I'm not really very well learned, but is the mental game with Jayden is so huge. Like that's such a big part of his game that defenses haven't figured him out yet. Come
Since you're uneducated, I know who you voted for. Um,
on,
Colonel,
that's right.
I talked about this last week, where like look back at what Jaden did early in the year, and I've said that's like alien like. Like this isn't like Elon Musk's Tesla robots, where you're going to continue that sort of success
Don't
all
bring that guy's name up,
all
Kyle.
season long. And that's my whole point here is that I think the drop off is obviously there were some good defenses that he faced against. The Steelers really play Lamar very well. And you kind of saw that against the Commanders, where it's not obviously they're two different quarterbacks, but the mobility part of it. And so I think it's much more so of just naturally not being able to do historic things every single week. And it's one thing for a normal veteran quarterback to be able to do that. Obviously, they have their slip ups, but even more so for a rookie quarterback. You can't really expect that kind of production being in the same likes as like Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees,
Dude,
Peyton Manning, and Tom.
he was
And
completing like
Patrick.
80% of his passes
It was
first, right? It's like
ridiculous.
he's just gonna come back down to earth a little bit,
Right,
you know.
exactly, and that's my point. And it's not like it's all on Jaden over the past two games as well.
O line.
I think it was a snowball effect of multiple different things. But that's the whole purpose of all this is you win as a team and you lose as a team, and essentially that's what you've been seeing the past couple of games where just that aspect that they are a new team, you have to go through those sort of just team building sort of exercises in the sense of losing and having to find the concoction, the recipe to be able to make it work. I don't think it's one way or another, but a long-winded answer, essentially saying I really don't think it's the rib injury. I don't. Now the
Yeah.
next question we have from the Colonel Reed. As a follow-up to my first question, DQ hasn't been shy about keeping injured players inactive in order to heal up. B. Rob and Lattimore, even with huge games like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Why wouldn't we start Mariota against Dallas and give JD a couple weeks to give us a playoff run?
Uh, I think most of it, like Marshawn Lattimore, his situation is you knew he was injured kind of coming into it. You knew it was going to be some time, and it's going to improve you once he plays. But this is also you got to think a little bit longer term with him. He's still learning the system and missing a few more or another game or two. It's is what it is. B-Rob too. I mean, being a running back, you felt good about Eckler and Jeremy McNichols. Like you feel good about those guys in there. You know that they can get the job done because they proved that. That's two guys right there. When it comes to Jayden, he's a rookie quarterback. He's still learning the game. I mean, we talk about his football IQ, but he's still getting accustomed to it. And that's your that's your leader, that's your quarterback. Like that's you want him out there as much as possible. And plus, I mean, if they were to sit him, then it's like okay, well, so then he was injured because you wouldn't bench him otherwise. And I just don't think that happens. I think that this next 2 weeks especially are going to be perfect opportunities for him to get some confidence back, any confidence that he may have lost over the last 2 weeks. Because going up against these teams, I mean, you would think that it would be something that would be a good thing for him. You want him to get as many snaps as possible.
Yeah, look, in with the NFL, as soon as you start looking ahead is when you start losing what's in front of you. And I don't want to look past this Dallas team and say, oh, it's a shoe in, easy. Like, I don't think it's going to be easy. You have to really worry about Turpin. As much as they are one of the worst teams offensively in running the football, they're 31st
Something could
in,
fall from the rafters, from the ceiling,
right.
and it could fall on you, and it could kill you.
It could,
It
literally.
almost did. Yeah.
And I think that them being 31st, averaging just south of 82 yards per game, I think you still don't want to take them lightly in that sense. And so you don't want to go into it just saying, oh, yeah, we got it. Let's have Mariota start. Because, in my opinion, you have the upper hand just in the aspect of your starting quarterback versus theirs. And if you do make that switch before the game even starts, you're closing that gap of an advantage, in my opinion. And it's not something you want to take lightly, just for me personally speaking. And so looking at this, like if they get up to a like crazy good lead, then yeah, sure, let's bring in Mariota just to make sure that Jayden Daniels is okay. But I think at this point you want to keep that advantage with you and use it. And you don't. I don't think this is a time to chill in that aspect. I think Dan Quinn has done a good job of saying about the practice time being an issue as to why the play has dropped off a little bit with accuracy, with rhythm and timing. And you're much more so doing that with game reps as well. You don't want to take that away from him. You want to keep that going. You don't want to hit a lull. You don't want to be in a cold spot. So let's make sure that the game is out of hand. You want to give the kid enough reps to continue fighting. You know what I mean?
Kyle, have you ever heard the theory about why there's chairs in the corner by the bed in hotel rooms?
No, please tell me.
No, just Google.
No, I'm not going to
Just
Google it.
Google.
Just tell me.
It's about people who like to watch.
Oh no, Lord. Now this next question from Deluxe in the Discord. You're probably better at answering that than I am. This question from Deluxe: after Washington wins this week, Reed, how many days do I need to wait to talk to my brother, the Cowboys fan? Does the score impact the length of time?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, to be honest, if your brother's a Cowboys fan, you probably shouldn't talk to him anyway. Probably shouldn't invite him to Thanksgiving this year. You probably just shouldn't have a relationship with him. And that's my final answer. No, I'm just kidding. No, just talk to him. I mean, usually when a team's this bad, like the way Dallas has been playing, let's be real. And like once your star quarterback is out, then you're playing your quarterback who struggled as much as he did last week. He knows he's going to be okay with it. I'm sure he doesn't expect Dallas to actually go in there and win. He wants him to. Maybe he'll trick himself into it. But like if it's a beatdown, it'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? If it's close, that's when you got to watch out. If it's close, because then he'll be like, dude, we almost had you. You know?
Deluxe, after so many years of watching games like with Cowboys fans and like not even against the Cowboys that day where Washington just loses and you hear what they're saying. You know, they're talking so much trash like, "Oh, Washington sucks." You know, same
Yeah.
old, same old. What I'll say is, you watch that game with him, and he has to go through that with you, and that way there is no break in communication. You've already dealt with it; it's already there, and you rub their face in it, man. That's all I'm gonna say. Rub
You
it in.
you stand yeah you stand behind him and you hold his eyes
Yeah.
open, make him watch that screen,
after
and you say
so
watch.
after so many years of the talking trash, like regarding like going against quarterbacks like Mark Sanchez and no
Josh
disrespect,
Johnson.
Taylor Heineke, what's it called, Donovan McNabb. You can go down the list of all the different ones that we've had where it's just like it's not really fair, and like we've had injuries to quarterbacks like Alex Smith here and stuff, and it's like they don't give us that excuse. So you know what? Let's keep the pedal on the metal. All right, that's all
That's
I'm
right.
saying.
hold
Make
him
him
down.
let the
You,
boy
you
watch.
let him sit in that chair right there in the corner, right by Kyle. You make him watch. Yeah. You like what's being done here. You like that. Open
Let
your eyes.
let the
Tell me
boy
what you want to
watch.
see next.
Next
Yeah.
question from Deluxe. To be successful, you have to take every game seriously and ignore the records. If you were the coach, how would you prepare the team this week?
Oh, dude, Dan Quinn, Joe Witt going up there, getting the boys fired up. I mean, I don't think there's anything I could say that would be half as tight as what Dan Quinn and Joe
Get in the
Witt are getting their
suits.
boys fired up for. You know what I'm saying? So I got nothing.
Basically, in the sense, looking at Dallas overall, in red zone conversion percentage on defense, they're 32nd. They're 31st in points per game, 31st in rushing yards on defense, and they're 18th in sacks. And that's been without Dorrance Armstrong, Demarcus Lawrence, without Micah Parsons. But they're still able to produce those sacks. And with Micah coming back, it's something you always have to be cognizant of. So that's what I was saying is like this isn't going to be easy. Whereas their last record is more indicative of where they were based on injuries. And so they're getting a little bit of guys back. You don't want to look past it. And I'm sure that they're not looking past it. But like the message for the week is like you control your destiny in the sense of being able to run the football and stop the run. You got to bank on being able to do that and force turnovers, force those pressurized situations on defensively and offensively, being able to, because of how they are against the run, almost last in the league. You got to be able to establish that ground and pound and just inflict your will upon them and let everything else fall where they may. And it's one of those things where you don't want to look past it, Arch. Now the next question from Arch Reed. If this season was an amusement park attraction, which line would you get in? The roller coaster, the haunted mansion seeing ghosts, or the NASCAR test track?
I'm gonna go with the roller coaster just because like this is like what was it, the Superman, where like that hill, you're on top of that hill. Jesus Christ, you were high. You were saying, "Oh my God, then what is this? Is this real? This is amazing. This is so sick. This is so awesome. How am I this high?" Go down a little bit and come back to reality. But yeah, it's gonna be a roller coaster. Just hopefully from here on up, it's a roller coaster that just goes straight and just no stops. Just nothing, no hill on the other side, just straight up after that.
I think it's a NASCAR test track. To be honest with you, is my personal opinion. Sorry, I just knocked my light over. I'm tripping out right now.
That was a ghost, dude. Your hotel room is haunted.
It is definitely
You
haunted.
didn't even touch anything. Where are you staying right now?
uh,
Where are you?
don't worry about it. Now it's all messed up. I
Damn,
think
you
it's.
don't want to reveal your location? Who are you?
I'm in Baltimore, dude.
Ew. Are you are you with Omar from The Wire?
Omar from where I am, Omar.
Don't say. Do you know about Omar? Omar's a good boy.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. You kind
So,
of are Omar, actually.
no, but
Yeah,
I would
you
say
are.
it's the NASCAR test track in the sense that like it has been a whirlwind of what they've been able to do. Especially starting off of that Cincinnati game where it has just felt like just going around and around. And obviously, you've slowed down a little bit. You're getting some gas in the car. You got the pit stop coming, and now you're going back out there to finish the race. And so you got to go as fast as you possibly can for the finish. And that's how I've kind of seen this whole season. It's really been a whirlwind. I wish Reed could have been there more to be able to enjoy it with us. It is what it is. But
Dude, you guys wouldn't have been able to stand me. I would have been fucking just puffing my chest out the whole time, being a little shit. I would
yeah,
have been no analyst, no analysis. Nothing's going wrong. Everything's right. We're winning by 100. Doesn't matter.
trust me, I was rubbing it in Hall's face about Brandon Ayuk thing and having to have multiple wide receivers
Yeah,
and
that got
establishing
kind
the
of
run,
flipped.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we don't need to get into that, Reed. There's no time
Real
for.
fast, I was about to say, I mean, Hall was a big Jayden Daniels guy. I, of course, unfortunately, was a Drake May guy. Kyle was a Bo Nix guy. All three of those guys are balling out, so that's a win for all three of us.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't that I
We
was
made the
like
right choice with Jayden.
it wasn't like a Bo Nick like I looking at the.
Kyle, you had pictures of him in your bedroom.
No, it was more so like thinking that I thought that there was like five quarterbacks that could go in the first round and that you could feel really good with. I will pat myself on the back of saying that Bo Nix was a perfect transition for Sean Payton in the
Yeah,
sense of like he really did that short area, quick throw, accuracy, just in rhythm stuff. That's what Sean Payton feeds on with like Drew Brees and others. Why Michael Thomas was considered the slant king. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that definitely was the case. But I really liked Jayden Daniels, and like that playmaking the accuracy was what really
Yeah,
stood out.
dude.
It was just I admitted this, like where I much more so let it get into my head about the injury concern and the long term ramifications.
Same. That's what
Where
yeah.
much more so you just need to be looking at who gives you the best
And
opportunity.
right.
You know what I mean?
That's the other thing too with like Drake May. I got so blindsided, or not blindsided, but so engulfed in it that I was like, forgot that the dude is going to throw a lot of interceptions early on in his career. And he's done that. I mean, so far
Yeah,
he's made a lot of plays, but like that's exactly what we thought would happen. Jaden's a perfect fit, just like his poise, everything about the guy. The guy just gets it. Okay.
he does. He does. Now the next question we have from Andy Lockhart in the UK. Oi! Which I'm sure he's going to be very happy to hear from you, sir.
Yeah, right. Andy, he hates me.
His question
Andy
is,
fucking hates me.
what will it take for the Commanders to win the division after Thursday's loss to the Eagles?
That's tough, man, because as much as you hate to admit it, that soulless city up in Philadelphia, they got a good football team. They are a good football team. I mean, but they don't scare me as much as they have in past years. Like they still seem a little bit disorganized. Like Jalen Hurts isn't what he was 2 years ago. You just don't see that anymore. You haven't seen it for the last couple of years. So I mean, we can pull it off. Who knows? One thing could go wrong in Philly, all of a sudden they're back down. But they do have a lot of talent, obviously, on both sides of the ball. And the one hope that we have is, even though he's playing well, is they still got a white cornerback. We can, if we can just get Terry lined up on him a bunch, then I'm sure that we can just have feast all day. Because no chance he's as fast running backwards as Terry is running forwards. You know
They
what I'm
they
saying?
they trolled you with those T-shirts they wore walking in.
What they were.
It was like the what Fantastic Whites or whatever shirt.
Yeah. That's fucking dumb.
But the funny thing is, I really liked Reed Blankenship coming out of that draft. He was like projected to be a seventh round pick at one point, but one of the things I wrote was that he was very opportunistic safety. Like he just, he went towards the ball, was able to make a lot of plays, and unfortunately, we saw that where Jayden just fed it into a really bad spot. But
Yeah, is
credit
what
to
it
Reed,
is.
that was not an easy catch by any stretch. But regardless, what will it take? I think they have to win out, obviously, for them to win the division and just let the cards fall where they may. If you don't win the division at that point, then credit to the Eagles, but you're putting yourself in a really good position. But I think winning
And
out is all you need to worry about. Just win
yeah,
every game each week. Just try to be the better team. That's all
and
you
we
can
still
worry about.
got one more game against Philly, which hopefully will be a huge, meaningful game, and we can come back and slap them in the mouth and say, "Do you like that? Do you like the way that that tastes?" Ha 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 ha.
Ha 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 ha. Now, the next question we have, last one, is from Tim Towner. Holiday season is upon us, Reed. What movie do you have in your bucket list to watch?
In my bucket list, well, I mean,
Brokeback Mountain for Reed, I know.
obviously that's a go-to holiday classic in the Reed household.
The
Nothing
Diddy
like
documentary on
nothing like a
Netflix.
cowboy getting fucked, you know. uh, 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 that was a Dallas joke. That wasn't. Uh, but
Sure, bud.
yeah, 2 months, dude. 2 months. It's gonna be a lot worse. But I'm a big I'm a big Christmas story guy. That's always one
Okay.
of my go-tos. I've already started this year. I know last year I was super into spooky season because I'm always into spooky season. This year I wasn't that into spooky season. I've had the holiday cheer for a long time. James has been listening to some Christmas music. I'm not allowed to set up anything Christmas. I'm not allowed to set up a Christmas tree or any lights or anything yet, or any decor, because it's not even Thanksgiving yet. But I've got the
We
spirit
already
in me.
did.
I'm looking, dude. I'm looking forward to the Grinch with Jim Carrey, which, by the way, I have his body. I've noticed.
You do.
That sucks.
Especially
Yeah,
for the Grinch. Yeah, and that was just the
that's what I'm
costume.
saying. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Jim Carrey one. Yeah, it sucks. And I mean, big, big. There's a sick movie called 8-Bit Christmas, which is it's okay. I mean, it's not that good, but it's decent for a Christmas movie that came out on Max a few years ago with Neil Patrick Harris narrating it. It's kind of like a modern day Christmas story. That one rules. But yeah, I'm a big Christmas story guy and elf
Okay.
school, I guess.
Well, obviously, the Christmas story is what you dedicate all Christmas Day to. I just remember
Yep.
it being on
Yeah.
TBS all day long.
24/7. Yep.
We've already decorated our house. I set up the Christmas lights on the house before I left to come here, and the night before, and so set that all up, lined the garage, everything. It looks really good. So look, we've already set everything up. Christmas tree is up.
Hell yeah.
The
Hell yeah.
nativity
The kids
scene
are
is
probably
already.
so pumped.
Oh yeah, well,
The
the
cast
kids.
love it.
You mean my wife?
That's because Katie gets it.
Yeah, the
This,
nativity
this,
scene is already up and lit, so that's looking good.
yeah,
But we've already started watching Christmas movies. So the Santa Claus
it's
is by
so
far,
good,
dude, it's
so
one the
good.
best. It really is. It's so
I
freaking
wouldn't say that
funny.
it's good though. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
good.
Santa's
Yeah,
more like a figure of it's a state of mind. He's like
yeah.
kind of like Neil. Love that movie, dude. It's so great. But I will say that like Eight Crazy Nights is one that I'd probably want to go back and watch. I haven't watched it in a long, long time. The Adam Sandler animated movie is so freaking funny. It's
It's not
probably
even about Christmas, dude. Come
it's
on.
it's about Hanukkah. It's a holiday season. He
It's
said
the
holiday
holiday.
season. He
He
didn't say
said holiday
Christmas.
season. Okay, if he said holiday season, I apologize.
Thank you.
Israel, I apologize. Guys, I apologize.
Now, at least we know what side you stand on, my friend. But
Don't don't cancel me.
but
Higher ups who run the
you
media.
cannot go through Christmas without watching Die Hard. Another point I'm going to put out there. You got to do it.
It's
That's
not a
on the
Christmas movie.
it's a
It's
bucket
not a
list
Christmas
item.
movie.
You got to do it.
It's
We've
not a
already
Christmas
watched
movie.
The Grinch, the animated one, and the Jim Carrey one. The animated one is not that good. They changed too much
Yeah,
stuff.
obviously.
They
Yeah.
changed way too much stuff around, dude. It's
Yeah,
so
that's what they
weird.
do these days.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
because like
saying?
in the Jim Carrey one, she has a dad, and then in the animated one, she doesn't have a dad. Like, where'd the dad go?
Why is that a fatherless household? I
Yeah,
agree with you.
I
Why
don't
is that?
understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Now let's
Don't
wrap up this episode, brother, by not answering, but predicting for this game this weekend, going against the Cowboys. Dallas is coming in at 3-7. Washington is 7-4, brother.
well, first of all, defense is going to have a fantastic game. They're going to have a lot of opportunities. Mikey Sanders still is going to get another interception. We're going to have a good amount of sacks. Offense is going to get back on track. Jayden Daniels is probably going to throw for maybe like 1,000 yards, probably, and also rush for 1,000 or close to it. And Washington wins 112-2. They get a safety because we fumble out of the end zone on accident, on purpose. Actually, we do it on purpose because we feel bad.
Yeah, and Washington right now defensively, they are 27th in red zone conversion percentage, where the Dallas Cowboy offense is 31st in the league in red zone conversion percentage. So this is definitely a game where you can help out that number and being able to stop them from being able to score points, and that ultimately is the big thing. You don't want to let up any big plays. This is the kind of offense where you want to make them go down the field, move like yard by yard, whereas you want to increase those yardage. You want to increase the opportunities for turnovers, and that's what you want to feast on, is being able to take the wind out of them completely. And it seems like the turnovers certainly do that against this Cowboy offense. And so I think that is going to be a point of emphasis, getting after the quarterback, forcing those interceptions and forcing fumbles. And then offensively, I think it's getting back to running the football, man, and being able to pound it down their throat like Reed on a weekend, where they are right now 31st in the league with rushing. And I think the
Right,
third, and that's going to really help with the third downs, because early on in the season, the third downs were something where it seemed like with ease, where there would be times where we'd even get to third down on offense, and we were just going down the field and scoring points. And so running the football effectively, sustainably, and hopefully you can get back into that rhythm this game, just with the mini bye, helping yourself out a little bit. So I will say it should be 44 for old Riggins, and I will say 9 for the Cowboys. And
For
but
Tony Romo.
I will say this, like, it's funny because I interviewed Logan last night, and I brought up that defensively you probably want to have a package prepared for Trey Lance in case he does come in the game. You know, he does have a strong arm, very mobile quarterback that
Yeah.
runs like a
Dumber than hell,
runs
but
really well. And so it's somebody you got to contain and make sure you don't get beat over the top with, and make it easy on him in that sense. But want to be prepared for that. And as soon as the interview was over with Logan, we didn't post it or anything, but I saw Adam Schefter tweeted that they were saying that Trey Lance is going to be getting more snaps this weekend. I was like, well, thank
dude,
goodness.
yeah. I mean, dude, well, what does that tell you about how Trey Lance has been? There's after Cooper Rush, after that duck that he put out there last week, they're like, you're not even just going to be like, let's get him experience and see what he can do. He's got a lot of talent. Like, he must be pretty bad when he's out there. You know what I'm saying? During practices and stuff.
Well, imagine like he was starting for the 49ers not too long
Yeah.
ago, and now look where it is, you know. And not only that, Daniel Jones got benched
Dude, it's
for
so funny.
Tommy DeVito,
How
and
did they put did they ever talk about why they didn't start Drew Lock?
no. So basically, Daniel Jones is the fourth quarterback on the roster. Drew Lock
Yeah.
is the second quarterback.
Yeah. But Drew Lock was second string already, and then like pass over him for DeVito, which I guess they rally around him because those greasy Italians up there in New
I
York.
think that tells you
But
everything you need to know personally,
yeah,
in the
that's
sense
true.
that they're going for that draft pick, whereas
Yeah.
like they're starting the third quarterback because they want to ensure,
Yeah.
like Drew
And
Lock
I
does
mean,
have the capability to turn things around. That's all I'm gonna say.
right. I mean, I have Malik Neighbors in fantasy, so like I was a little pissed off about that because I was like, Drew Lock's got an arm. He's gonna at least, the dude doesn't care. He's got that Jay Cutler syndrome where he'll just throw it.
Right.
But yeah, it is what it is.
Well, Reed, I'm glad to have you back. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, yeah,
Tim Towner
right.
thought that I had suspended you from the show, and I could promise you that's not the case at all.
I was holding out for a contract, new contract.
Yeah.
I was pulling, yeah.
But he buckled at the end under
I
pressure. You know
buckled,
how
yeah.
that goes too.
I had to. He gave me something called tenure. I don't know what it means, but I got it. So
it is what it is. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. We'll see you again on Sunday post-game for a post-game reaction show. Make sure you check it out then. And we appreciate you guys. Appreciate everyone who contributed into this episode. Thank you to the Colonel, Tony Franchise. Thank you to Yam. Thank you to Andy Lockhart, Arch, Tim Towner. We appreciate you guys. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Daniel Kelly. I'm Daniel Kelly, former NFL scout.
And it's Dallas week. We got the Duel against Dallas this weekend. Make sure you guys are loud in the stadium. You make sure you make your presence known. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday evening. Have a safe week. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.